Oh, hey guys, it's Alan, a Boston fan. And today I'm going to make a video just to show off some recent pickups in my search for expanding my tobacco era Red Sox project. As I have mentioned several times, I'm working on a project just to capture early Red Sox history through the tobacco era products. And so I think I'm going to call this video something like early Fenway history. It's going to focus on a couple players that played a role in the early history of Fenway Park, um, and a little bit of Red Sox history as well. But of course, Fenway opened in 1912, and its first game was played on April 20th, so six days, 5 days after the Titanic sank, depending on whether you count the 14th, striking the iceberg, or the 15th when it actually foundered. So it was, kind of lost to the headlines, but I picked up some cards that I want to commemorate that with. The first one here is one that was the most recent pickup. It is a T207 card of pitcher Buck O'Brien. It is evidence of trimming, which is fine with me, having that being disclosed. I've been watching for Buck O'Brien cards for the better part of 6 or 7 months, and this card doesn't come up very often. I don't know that it's necessarily short printed, but I've only seen a couple, and there's one on eBay, buy it now, right now, that's like $250. It's a Recruit Little Cigars back. And the way that Buck O'Brien comes into play is that he started the first ever game at Fenway Park on April 20th in 1912. He did not gain the victory, but he did start it, which I think is pretty unique for starting pitcher ever at Fenway Park. So he threw the first official pitch at Fenway Park. And that year, 1912, the Red Sox won the World Series, and he won 20 games with a 2.58 ERA. He started and lost Game 3 of the 1912 World Series, and then the Red Sox took a 3-1 lead, or 3-2 lead, I'm not sure, 3-2 lead. And for Game 6 on the road, the Red Sox owner Jimmy McAleer decided to bypass Joe Wood, which would have won the series, right? The Red Sox had 3 wins. Bypassed Joe Wood and had Buck O'Brien start because he was hoping that Buck O'Brien would lose, and that would force a Game 7 back at Fenway Park so that he could rake in the home gate receipts. Buck O'Brien was not told of this in advance, so before the night before the game, he went out drinking and was quite hungover the day of Game 6. So he, of course, lost Game 6, forcing a Game 7, which the Red Sox ended up winning. So I picked up the Buck O'Brien. I was glad to get this for under $100, honestly, even in the trim condition. It's a solid picture, and, nice to add someone who started the first ever game. But of course, he didn't finish it. The man who got that first victory is on this T207. It is Charlie Hall. So he won the first game ever at Fenway Park in 1912. He didn't have much to say of his career after that. He didn't play in the World Series that year. He also played for the Reds, the Cardinals, and the Tigers, but the most notable thing that I found about his career is that he started the first game ever. And another little recruit back, a little bit faded. Pretty cool with me, though. And I just love the Red Sox across the front. The T207s, the brownbacks, or brownbacks as they're called, or brown backgrounds, don't get quite as much love as the T206s, T205s, and they're a little bit less arty, I think, but they are nice representations of the players. So glad to add that. So these are kind of bookending that first game, the starting pitcher and the first winning pitcher, which I think is pretty cool, and I'll be glad to display those. I am looking to pick up the person who got the first hit at Fenway Park. That would be Harry Wolter of the Highlanders/Yankees. I'm not sure what they were called in 1912. Someone please comment below if they were called the Yankees in 1912. Maybe it was a bit of both. He has a T205 card that is on my watch list, and I would like to add that. It's not a Red Sox card, but it is an important part of Fenway history, as he had the first hit. I believe it was an infield single that Buck O'Brien couldn't handle. And then the last piece of this early Fenway video is another sort of no-name player, and that is Hugh Bradley. So another T207, him in the Red Sox jersey. Another little recruit back, has some writing. I think this was a Greg Morris purchase, and I got it for a pretty fair price. And the significance of Mr. Bradley is that he hit the first home run ever at Fenway Park. He did it 6 days after the debut at Fenway Park, and he is also the first person ever to hit the ball over the left field wall. Not the Green Monster at the time, it was just a tall wall at the top of a hill that they put in left field to protect the businesses on Lansdowne Street. But he hit a home run, the first home run out of Fenway Park and over the left field wall at Fenway Park. And I think that having those three in my tobacco era Red Sox collection tells a nice little story of the early history of Fenway Park, and to be able to collect cardboard that depicts that, the fact that Fenway, the oldest ballpark currently in use and in existence in America, in terms of major leagues at least, and to have cards of the gentleman that set those firsts, I think is really neat. And that's what I've really enjoyed about starting to collect the tobacco cards, is that you can piece together a lot of these pioneers in baseball, right? I have the first catcher in Red Sox history, the first person to hit two home runs in a World Series game. You can find all that if you do a little research, and it doesn't have to be the Hall of Famers that you collect. You can collect randos like Buck O'Brien and Hugh Bradley and Charlie Hall, and they had their little pieces to play in baseball history. It won't break the bank, and you can put together a really cool collection. I just looking at these three, this is the first time I've ever lined them up together. And just the small story they tell is just a lot of fun as a Red Sox collector, to have, early Fenway Park history standing right in front of me. So I just wanted to share that with y'all. Yeah, I'm really enjoying and really into this pre-war tobacco era Red Sox venture. I'm learning a lot about the early history of the team. I'm much more interested in it than I have been in the past. For the longest time, honestly, I just disregarded the dead ball era as just a wonky time in baseball history, and honestly didn't pay it much attention, other than, knowing some of the bigger players. But I'm really starting to appreciate it more for what it was. It was a different brand of baseball. The balls were different. The game was played differently. That's fine, but it's still an important part of the baseball history. And it's just a lot of fun to research and go through. So I'm having a blast collecting this stuff. Condition, as long as it presents nicely. There's a lot of talk in the community right now about eye appeal and why we scrutinize cards. They look good to me, and I'm going to be really glad to have those in a display on my wall one day, to talk about early Red Sox history and start conversations with friends or anyone who comes over. So I just wanted to share that. I hope you guys appreciate this. I hope it, turns some people on to maybe taking a little look at tobacco. It's a huge rabbit hole to fall into, but it's a lot of fun reading and researching and looking for old games and old box scores and kind of piecing together the early history of baseball. So, yeah, you can't ask for anything more in a hobby, really, right? You collect cool stuff, you get to do research and nerd out on it completely. So, I appreciate you guys watching. I can appreciate any comments you might have, collections you want to share or anything like that. So anyway, guys, just keep collecting, keep having fun. Adios, amigos.